Good morning. Welcome to the Eastham Solar Workshop. It's great to see so many people here. What a wonderful turnout. A lot of familiar faces, unfamiliar faces. This is a great event for the library and for the Climate Action Committee. My name is Terry Gallagher. I represent the town of Eastham on the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates. If you don't know what that is, you can speak to me after class. How many people are here because they want to learn how to save money? How many people are here because they want to learn how to save the planet? How many people think we can do both of those things at the same time? Yay. Okay, we're done. You've come to the right place to learn about how to do the right thing. Rooftop solar is about the best thing you can do to reduce your personal consumption of fossil fuels, reduce your carbon footprint, and help cut emissions of greenhouse gases. Nearly 30 years ago, I was at the UN Climate Conference in Berlin working as a journalist for Reuters. It was 3 years after Rio, but it was still early days in the discussion of what to do about climate change. We still called it global warming. At any rate, back then everybody complained about how much it was going to cost to do the right thing. And there are still people focused on the upfront costs of the investment needed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But those costs have come down dramatically in 30 years, and most people can see how much money can be saved by cutting consumption of fossil fuels. The sun supplies more energy than we will ever need, more than we can ever use. Even wind power is just another form of solar energy, because it's temperature differentials between land and sea that are the primary force driving the wind. For that matter, fossil fuels are also stored solar energy, but in a form we need to wean ourselves away from because of unintended consequences. Things have changed a lot in the past 30 years. Solar power has become ubiquitous. Wind power also much more common. I had a chance to drive across Texas 4 times in the last 2 years. We think of Texas as an oil and gas state, but when you drive across Texas, sure, you still see oil and gas wells, but much larger and more impressive are the wind farms and large-scale solar arrays that you see. Even in New England, when you drive down the highway, large-scale solar arrays are common. Look no further than our own transfer station right here in Eastham. And many, many houses in this town now have solar panels on the roof, particularly those that are occupied in winter. The reason for this is clear. It has become cheaper to harvest the power of the sun and wind. Solar panels now cost about 1/8 what they did in 2009. Advances in technology are part of the reason, but another part is more widespread use. As more people use this technology, it becomes cheaper to produce, and that encourages wider use. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Solar now generates about 20% of the electricity produced in Massachusetts. Most of our power still comes from natural gas, but those ratios are changing more quickly than you might think. Our main electricity company, Eversource, recognizes that conservation and small-scale power generation by ordinary people are more important than adding new capacity to generate electrical power at an industrial level. And you and I are where the rubber meets the road. By that I mean you and I, all of us personally, but also our local and county governments, which represent all of us. I put solar on my house here in Eastham about 7 years ago, and on my in-laws' house down the street about a year later. The experience has been great. In the first house, we were amassing credits with Eversource. In the second, where my wife and I now live, we are about breaking even. The reasons are complicated. I can't say I fully understand them. It's a work in progress. That's why I'm here today, to learn more about how this works. Barnstable County has a solar installation at the county farm, which helps run the greenhouses. But it's not a full speed ahead effort. There's a lot of work left to do. There's been other initiatives like putting solar on the rooftops of the county complex and a canopy over the parking lot, where things were proposed and they bogged down in some practical considerations, but the county's not giving up. CVEC, that's the Cape and Cape and Vineyard Electrical Cooperative is the vehicle coordinating renewable power generation in 25 communities of the Cape and Islands. The Cape Cod Commission does a lot of work on solar from a technical and planning perspective. The Climate Action Plan of 2021 is one of the first things I worked on as a member of the Assembly. It provides a policy umbrella for all environmental activities on the Cape. And the town of Eastham is also doing a lot. As a green community, Eastham has committed to some ambitious environmental goals and has already received grant money to help fund those initiatives. The town has installed solar on the DPW building, on the landfill, the elementary school, and this building, the library. This does not yet fully generate all the electricity the town government consumes, but it will soon. And the town is working with CVEC, which I just mentioned, seeking proposals for solar on the Eastham Police Department roof and a solar canopy at the transfer station. This will get us closer to covering all of the town's energy use. And I thank Shana Brogren, who's the Projects and Procurement Director at the town, for the info she provided about this. The Climate Action Committee is our action team, and they're sponsoring and coordinating today's program, which has a lot of really practical information for everybody here to use. And they're doing so much more, helping both the town government and the people of the town understand what we can do and how to get it done. And that's what we're here to do today. I thank you all for being here. Have a great time.
Thank you, Terry. That was wonderful, and we really appreciate what you do for us in the county. I'm Tom McNellis. I'm a member of the Climate Action Committee here in Eastham, which is part of the Outer Cape Climate and Energy Committees. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to give you a quick overview anyway, about what we're doing today at the workshop. So what to expect. And then I'm going to get out of the way because we have a lot of exciting experts coming up to talk to you and give you information that will help you decide. And that's really what this is all about. It's to give you unbiased information. We have no vendors here. The folks that are coming to speak today are coming on their day off. And this is, everyone is passionate about the topic of saving energy. And also, as Terry mentioned, saving energy is an easy way to reduce the greenhouse gas pollutions. But we're really going to talk a lot about how you can save money, because saving energy is saving money. Okay, so Terry's talk about going through Texas and all the, the renewable energy reminded me of, one day when a solar panel was talking to a wind turbine and chatting and said, hey, so what do you think about this whole renewable energy thing? And the wind turbine turns to the solar panel and says, hey, I'm like your biggest fan. All right, the first bad dad joke of the day. But what I do want to ask is, a quick show of hands, how many are big fans of paying money to the electric company? One. As I figured, we're not big fans of that, and everyone knows their energy bill has gone up considerably, and over the last year. A lot of that is because a lot of the energy is being driven by fossil fuels that are getting more and more expensive, and heck, right over our heads is an answer, is solar energy. So I think we owe you is explaining why we're here to tell you this and who we are, because everyone is, I think, we've all become very skeptical about where we get our information, and I think rightly so. There's a lot of stuff that you probably get barraged by, a lot of strange claims about, free this and free that. We are not vendors. We are just, passionate about helping, neighbors helping neighbors. The select boards have asked all of the committees, each committee in turn, Eastham Select Board, and I mentioned the Outer Cape Climate Committees that are all here today as well, to help neighbors and help the town be energy efficient. So there's a number of reasons behind that. One, as Terry said, that also reduces our greenhouse gas pollution, and that's something that we are all the towns are on the hook to do. But also it helps our energy grid, which is a little bit fragile way out here on the Cape. And adding distributed energy generation is a very good thing. And probably number one for y'all is it's going to help you save money. And that's a big part of what the select boards have been asking, especially for those that are middle income or lower income. We want to be able to find ways that we can help you save money. So we've been looking into all those ways, and we're going to show you what we've learned today, and we brought in experts to really explain that. Anyone remember back in the 70s, the energy oil crisis, right? I mean, we hated the lines to go get gas, and we're not going to get back to that. But what was interesting to me is that in that time frame, we were very focused on energy efficiency and trying to do things efficiently. We're smart consumers, right? And I about 5 years ago, as I started working with the committee and looking around here, it's like, gee, we've all just kind of like gotten used to turning on the light switch, and the energy is there. Well, where's it all coming from, and are we really spending our own money efficiently in paying for all that? And I know there's a down arrow here. There we go. So again, amazing statistics, and Terry mentioned that coming down from the sun is one of the most powerful sources of energy. Challenge is how to harvest it, so we'll talk about that today. But there's enough there to power the entire planet in about an hour's worth of sunlight. It's just amazing. Now we can't use that hour's worth of sunlight to do that, but we can use a good chunk of it. And in fact, what matters is what's coming over your own home today is enough to power your home for the year. I went into solar about 3 years ago, my wife and I, and we've not paid any electric bill since. And as I said, a good chunk of our electricity that we're getting off the grid right now is still coming from fossil fuels and coming from overseas. But, the entire chunk of what your electricity is doing is coming out of your pocket. So let's be smart consumers. Why consider solar? Well, there's lots of reasons. Today we're really going to talk about how you can reduce your energy bills. And also really interesting, we realized as we went, because of what's called the net metering credits, and you'll learn about this today, you're selling excess energy back to the grid and buying it back when you need it. And so in the winter, it's a little bit, the sun is not up as much, but in the summer, there sure is plenty of sun. And so at least at our house, we're using the grid as a bit like our bank. And it insulates you from energy rate increases, because you're selling it at the current rate. You're selling it at the higher electrical rates of the day. And what we're finding is that Cape residents are missing out on these savings. I didn't realize, again, 5 years ago when we went into this, that what we used to be told is 20 years of payback for solar panels is now down to only 4 or 5 or 6, depending on your situation. So we'll go into some of those details today. All right, so I'm not going to go into everything behind this slide, but just to tell you that we're going to go into each of these different options. On the left is rooftop solar. A lot of people are going with rooftop solar, but there's other options. As with a lot of things around our economy, the higher savings requires more of an investment, and not everyone can make that investment up front. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other options here. If you go with a purchase, you own the system. Also, if you finance it, you own the system. And both of those give you federal and state credits, tax credits. There's a lot of tax credits that you can get today, and I think for the next 9 or 10 years. So we'll talk about that. But what's interesting is that if you finance it, there are low-cost loans available right now. And coming up next year, there's a program called Solar for All that Leslie's going to talk about. We'll get more details, I think, as that program progresses next year, with even better financing available for folks. And what it means is the 2 to 10 year time frame that you might take on your financing, you'll take the money that you used to spend on your energy bills and pay off your solar panels. And then after that time frame is done, after 8, 9, 10 years, all that money goes in your pocket. So a really good deal. Community solar is another option. That's where there's large solar farms, I'll call them. And Megan, I don't know where Megan is. Megan is going to talk about that today, and I think Leslie has some stuff on that as well. And then there's also a green option, and if nothing else, all of these things are helping you get clean energy. The green option, if you go with the utility green option, you help enable green energy. Frankly, the electrons coming down into your house are still the same mix as everybody else gets. But one thing to note here is that Cape Light Compact is in the lobby, and if you go with the Cape Light Compact energy option, you don't pay extra for that green energy. You get it as part of the basic energy. So don't fall for all the circulars you might get that says, hey, we can sell you green energy for more money. Anyway, solar sizing is you're going to hear a lot about that today. I would say the basics is to get your house weatherized first, and getting an energy assessment, which is free from Cape Light Compact, will really help you get there if you haven't done that. So that gives you a good baseline. And then starting from the left, you go from kind of the basic solar system to power your lights and appliances. If you do only that, that's great. If that's all, if that's all the money you want to put into it today, that's great. But you do want to consider the future. And again, we'll talk about that today. If you don't have an electric heat pump, you might want to budget for that for the future. And within 10 years, you may be replacing your oil or gas burner with electric. Within about 10 years, you may be thinking about an electric car. You can use solar to offset the additional electricity that you're going to need when those happen. You can expand your panels later, or you can build it in today, and there's options for you. So the options are yours to call. There's also a battery option, which is really interesting. Batteries are becoming much more affordable today. That gives you some protection for when the grid goes out. Traditional solar panels won't run when the grid is out, so you need to be aware of that. And again, our speakers will talk about a lot of that stuff. So the big message here is that there's a lot of passion behind all these different options. It's really yours to decide how you want to do that based on your own budget. Don't be afraid that if you can't afford something on the right-hand side of here, that doesn't mean you shouldn't start. All right, the most important piece is to make that decision now. So the agenda is going to step you through some of that. We've got some marvelous speakers today. We'll have a break in the middle there. Big thanks to the Friends of the Library who have really enabled this, and they've provided food and beverages in the back there. We have exhibitors outside, and each of them have a different piece of the puzzle here. Some really exciting exhibitors, and there is a piece of paper that talks you through all that. Please go and talk to them. And then this afternoon, we're really excited to offer solar tours. We have 4 volunteers in town, again, neighbors helping neighbors, and they're going to open up their yard, and you can come and actually see what the installation looks like. You can talk to them about their experiences. Each one has a slightly different sized home. One of them has an ADU. One of them has an EV, so that'll be exciting to see that as well. Some are purchased, some are leased panels. So you get a good perspective on that. So in the end, what we want you to do is consider green energy. It's your decision to make. We're not going to be forcing you. We're not selling anything today. And I'll just end you with a thought as you explore clean renewable energy. What do you call it when there's a huge solar energy spill in your town? Hey, look outside. They call it a nice day. All right, first up is really happy to have from the State Department of Energy Resources, Leslie Medellena. She's the program coordinator and has been involved in solar for many years and is doing a lot of work in solar with the state right now. She worked as an operations manager in the industry since 2015 before coming to the state. And so she's familiar with policies from multiple states, and I think New Jersey was in that mix, and Massachusetts, of course. The experience included working with the customer base and with a broad knowledge of the operations process and how solar works and how you can make it work for you. She's worked for the state since February of 2022, so let's welcome Leslie.
All right. I'm not familiar talking into this thing, so I'm probably going to go in and out, but I'm going to really try to focus. So thankful to be here, extremely thankful. I appreciate the invite, and I'm happy to talk to you all about solar. My experience, yes, is more in that customer care aspect. So a lot of my heartstrings go to consumer protection and making sure that everybody in this room could potentially make the right decision. So from the state level, I cannot say this solar company is good or not. So there is no sales pitch in this discussion. It's really about the steps that you can take that will make you more knowledgeable. And if you are knowledgeable, you empower yourself. So I do know there's a time for Q&As at the end. Tom will flag if we go over time. A lot of our discussions here, there's additional team members that are going to be speaking. So a lot of the stuff I've already seen, we're talking about the same things. So let me get over to the next slide. So the question I kind of already saw by show of hands, how many of you have solar already? Why are you here? Get outside. But honestly, thank you for being here, because you know you've already kind of been that, and if you have neighbors and friends, you're a good talking point. I think everybody kind of watches solar when it goes on the roof, like, what are they getting? What does it do? So you guys are great reference points. Other things that we get from the department is a lot of questions from consumers. How do I go solar? What can I do? What is out there? Help me. We try our best, and how we do that is we use references. So the Attorney General's office has frequently asked questions. They hear you. They listen to complaints. They built a frequently asked questions so that you know what the common questions are out there, and they are fielded for you. CBANE is another good reference point. There are a bunch of solar installers and developers that came up with a consumer protection guideline. So, and then there's also Mass CEC. Their website is full with very informative tools. It's a significant amount of reading sometimes, but it is very enlightening. And I will be out after this talk, I can share those websites with you so that you guys can look at them yourselves. One of the things that is highly recommended is seeking 3 solar quotes, up to 3.
Can you just repeat the first one you said?
The AGO's office frequently asked questions. Attorney General's.
CEC was good, what did you say before that?
CBANE, SEBANE. So they have that. So what they kind of recommend is up to 3 solar quotes, and you might be asking why. When you're out there in the market, there's all different types of, we've already talked about it, financing options. What's good for you. The equipment that everybody will be using is going to maybe change. I think the overall system size, which they're going to be talking about today, which is amazing, that is factors in pricing and warranties. So being familiar with what goes into a solar agreement and also seeing the differences and making sure that you make the right decision is why we are suggesting up to 3 solar quotes. Familiarizing yourself with your electric bill, it's a part of today's discussion. It's gives you, sizing your system appropriately is a very good thing to have in your back pocket before you are sitting down with a solar consultant. Okay, another factor that goes into everything with solar is your pitch and orientation of your roof. It's just good to know because it will be brought up during that solar consultation. So, you're sitting there, your pitch of the roof might be here, 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 but it's also the orientation of your the roof. It's south-facing roofs are considered a gold mine, but it doesn't mean that you, as a southeast roof, can still go solar. So, that's just knowing that they're out there. And if you have that south-facing roof and if you don't have solar, there are probably a significant amount of solar consultants knocking on your door trying, would you like to go solar? So those types of things are out there. And then just knowing that shade values are considered a part of, the overall thing that will go into your solar agreement. You brought up, I think, the technical potential of solar study. That is something that we did as a department. We literally worked with a consultant and went parcel by parcel to see where solar can be sited. So it's a good thing to look up your own house. It's a tool. It's not meant to be exact. So when I looked up my house, I was so excited when the map came up. And I was like looking it up. And I was like, it says that I can have a ground mount. I can't have a ground mount. But there is a potential for a ground mount at my location, but my town is never going to allow that. So it's out of the question. But if you do look up your own house, don't be like shocked that it might say something like that. But it's also a good tool because it kind of gave me, using all the roofs that I have available, what size system that could potentially go on my roof. Okay. It's on our website. And like I said, any of those types of questions, I'll be there, out there with my laptop to kind of point you into all of those. All right, next slide. All right. I will, if you like at the questions, I'll have that out there when I'm sitting outside. So just come over and talk to me about those. It's on the department's website. Oh, okay.
There is a handout that is available that has all the wealth resources. So make sure you get one of those handouts. Is it down here?
Oh, I got it. I'm good. I'm using yeah. So also when you are sitting with a solar consultant, we talked about direct ownership. There's incentives, and I'm using the term incentive. I'm not using the term rebate. So there is quite of a distinction a little bit there. But from the state, we incentivize direct ownership projects by giving you these two. And as a state representative, we love our acronyms. So you're going to see SMART stands for Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target, tariff-based incentive program with a declining block structure. And then also the direct ownership projects will receive payment directly from the utility company. Unfortunately, right now, some of you may know or may not know, so I like to highlight this, that unfortunately, due to the value of energy increasing significantly and the SMART incentive values, it ended up being zero. So we're highly aware that the SMART program right now is at a zero incentive rate, but I'm going to get to a little bit further down the line on what that is. So you will probably hear about the RPS program. That is a market value energy credit program. And I highly suggest if you're talking with the sales rep or sales consultant that you just ask the questions of what that is if you are going into a direct ownership program. Okay. So a lot of us keep talking about the same thing, so I'm just going to keep this at very high level. As direct ownership, that can be cash. I call it cash. I don't know why in our industry, but cash or a loan. Again, that owner of that solar system, the tax rebates, and then the state incentive. So you get the tax, federal and state. You also can get into a power purchase agreement. They call those PPAs. Well, there's a significant amount of acronyms. I probably should just come out with a glossary of acronyms. I could probably sell that. And then the third is community solar. Community solar might be an option if you don't fit into the other two brackets. And also if your house is potentially surrounded by trees and you care about the Lorax and you don't want to cut them down. So community solar would be a good option there. Okay, slide. So we're going in, I'm kind of going through like what I consider the process of this, and I'm hoping that at this point you've decided to go solar, you've signed an agreement, and we're going into what goes into solar. So this slide is not to be exact, it's just highlighting some different things here. It's more of like, what the heck is going on your roof? Like, and I don't think a lot of people know what that is. And a lot of people, from my experience, are surprised. And they're quite shocked of how much actually goes into a solar project. So we always said we consider it a construction project. So really what we're looking at here is solar panels. First and foremost, solar panels. Personally, I always thought solar panels would be getting smaller over time, like those little mini iPod things that they came out with. I'm like, oh great, we're gonna have a whole bunch of little solar tiny panels. That didn't happen. What has changed actually is the wattage of the panels. So when I speak of the term watt, I'd like you guys to know what that means. It's a measure of the rate of energy transferred over a unit of time. So that wattage of the panels, when I started in solar, was around 225 watt panels. There's up to 600 watt panels now. So really for you sitting on your side, that means that less panels may potentially go on your house because the wattage is a little bit higher. And again, our goal is just to cover your electric bill at 100%. So really what this is also like kind of showing is a diagram. I do need a little help with this, but there are some key components, and the ones that I'm going to show you. Inverter is going to be on your house. There's two different types. A micro inverter will be going underneath. If you have a micro inverter, every single micro inverter will be underneath one of those solar panels, and the inverter, it will be also on the outside. You have a meter, your utility meter. If you end up in the smart program, there will be an extra smart meter outside. We also work with your main electrical panel, inverter, main electrical panel, this. I think I've got it all, but I might be missing something, but it's gonna come back up. So what I kind of did is I worked with some close friends and I got some pictures. And what my goal is to kind of show what these look like. So the one you're looking at right now on the right-hand side is an inverter, and that's a solar edge inverter, which is pretty common out there in the market. And that right next to it is what they call, you could see by that potentially, it's a rapid shutdown or like a shut-off switch. So those two things will always be there on your out there. Those are important. And then the next one I'm going into is a little bit, again, that kind of shows two things at once. It's an older system, so don't judge sizes or anything like this to scale or anything. But you also have one solar system that's a solar edge, and then there must have been an add-on with the end phase. So that is possibilities if you do currently already have solar and you're noticing that you may have you're not seeing as many savings and there could be room for an add-on. Just know that is a potential out there. So this one I'm also pointing out really well because I wanted to show you conduit. And those are the silver things that you're seeing there. That, again, construction project, that's housing all of that electrical wires in there. So you're not just seeing wires out there. Most people are surprised of conduit. Whenever I'm out driving, I constantly look at roofs. I look at conduit run. I can't help myself. I'm like, how good of a job they did. How does this work? How many of you actually have attics? Okay, wow, I wasn't expecting that. That's good. Not to say that anything is bad here, but working with a solar consultant, majority of them can run that conduit through your attic. It's less visibility coming down the side of your house or around, et cetera, like this. The reason why I'm telling you that is because it's important. Your house. I think everybody cares what the aesthetics look. Most people don't even like the way solar looks when they're going on your house, but knowing that this type of material and these lines will be on there as part of the solar project, knowing where it's going to be going. That can happen when you sit down with a solar consultant. If you care about it, bring it up. Use your voice and tell them, I want to know what happens there. That can be in advance or it can happen at the day of install. That's really where there's usually a crew lead that will be there and they're going to walk you through that. So be there the day of install. They're going to walk you through where all the equipment is going. Majority of the equipment, they like to be around the electrical meter. It makes it really your utility meter because it just, for safety purposes, service purposes, everything's all right there in one shot. So those are a little bit about conduit run, inverters, microinverters. So those are those types of terms that you may hear and just knowing what they are and the differences between them. The next one is I mentioned we also tie into your main electrical panel, and I picked a picture for a reason. So this one on the left is a main electrical panel. And we went solar with that. So if you think that your main electrical panel looks something similar, there's a reason why I picked this. I'm going to be talking about it a little bit later. But what happened is that we did go solar with this main electrical panel. And then the reason why, I don't know if there's any electricians in the house. Oh, yes, I feel good that I know these things now. So I'm going to talk line taps. Line taps are the reason there. I know like my language in this. It's not like professional electric terms. So, and I was so proud that they also line taps went into your main electrical panel. This is going outside, and it's the interconnection method. And then the two little things on the right-hand side are what they call bug bites. I was so proud of my like they said, bug bites. I'm like, I don't have any. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, no, solar. It goes into a solar inverter when you are doing these taps. Let's just say that your main electrical panel does not look like this, and it's open. You have some open spaces. What you're probably going to end up seeing is a solar breaker. Everything is labeled, so everything is way labeled. That's for safety purposes. That's for, there's a significant amount of rules and guidelines. So a solar breaker is going to take up 2 spots in your main electrical panel. It works just like a regular breaker on off there, but I also kind of wanted to show 2 different options of how solar can be installed in your house using your main electrical panel. Okay, going over. All right, this one's my fun one. I personally like this because we've talked about solar, the market that's out there, and I don't know if you've seen it lately. It's caught our attention at the state level. The amount of ads that are out there is just extremely, and what they're putting out there, I kind of wanted to debunk a few. Just because they literally drive me crazy. They're just so, oh, yeah, there it is. Sorry. They're just there. So I have a coworker that marks every single one to spam. He marks them, he tracks them, and he's like spam, 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 and he's so proud of himself. So it is football season, and I'm going to throw some flags. So if anybody is coming to your door representing the state or the utility company, red flag. Red flag. I'm not coming to your house. I am not trying to sell you solar. I would lose my job. It is a conflict of interest. Nobody from the state. I like my job. Nobody's coming from the state. Utility companies are not coming to your door. I'm not quite sure that they still want us all going solar, but a utility company is not a representative. As you can see, we all have lanyards here with our names and visible there. Any solar representative that is coming to your door should have one of these. If they don't, the Attorney General's office, they like to know about that. They really do. They do not like any type of false ads or advertisement when people are coming to your door. Free solar. Red flag. The word free. No. Unfortunately, no matter what you're doing with solar, no matter the financing option, you paid cash for it. Guess what? You paid for it. You've got a loan. You're in a PPA. You're in community solar. You're still paying for it. But what we are all agreeing here is that we're going to see a reduced electric bill. So if any rep that is sitting there and saying free to you, red flag. Yeah, they're more just going to say a no money down system. That's more prominent in the industry. The next one that I've seen significantly, more Healy's usually on it. The government's going to pay you to go solar. And it's like, I wish. We might be able to one day with all the federal and all these IRA grants and stuff that might be out there. If that can happen, we're going to be happy to be able to help you go solar. But right now, we're not Oprah. We're not sitting here and saying, you get a free solar panel, you get a free solar system. It's just not working. So those ads that are out there, another red flag. The next one that I'm bringing up is new roof or main electrical panel needs to be upgraded. I consider this a caution flag. I can't say how good your roof is or is not. I can't say how the main electrical panel looks, but that's why I brought up that picture, because that main electrical panel might not look like it could go solar, but it did. So somebody that could be saying to you, you need a main electrical panel upgrade or you need a new roof, that's a caution. That's one of the ones that I kind of think that put a flag in it, put a pin, ask a roofer for a quote. Ask an electrician if I'm going to be doing this, this is the right thing for me. It also gives you a price point value. If you're sitting there and you're looking at what it costs to go for a new roof, then you have a price point. You have data in your hands before making a decision if these types of things do come up during that solar consultation. The other thing with this too, is just be cautious again, because when they are building in the new roof or any type of additional main electrical upgrades, that price is also rolled into the cost of your solar. And depending on what options that you're going to be seeing, the 20 to 25 years, that cost is built into that price. So just again, be cautious, do your homework, ask questions. Okay, the last slide, since I'm coming from the state, I figured I brought up that's the SMART program is at 0. Highly aware of that. We have a great group of legislators that are wanting to give people the incentive to go solar. So having one program, we're kind of thinking that they'd like to revise the SMART program. So right now, what we're going through, we are working with a consultant. They're going to kind of build pricing structures to see what it takes to go solar right now. So we're building the building blocks to see if and when somebody says, build the SMART program back again, we will have the information available to you. The exciting thing that's on the horizon, there's federal money coming through for Solar for All. This is really an exciting, buzzy thing because we submitted a grant application, $250 million in funding for solar. The goal is to kind of take that some of the things and the lessons learned in the department and putting this into the Solar for All. So it's a big haul, and our intentions of it are really coming from a good place. So the funding will be for low-income households. The program proposed includes options for single-family homes, multifamily buildings, and community solar. We're proposing a mix of approaches to account for different household projects' needs, including zero-interest loans, lease with pathways to ownership, which is huge, and grants. I kind of told you maybe I will be able to throw some money to you. I don't know yet. As well as targeted technical assistance and workforce development. We do anticipate that the Solar for All process will lead us into working closely with regional planning authorities, municipalities, and local organizations, and service providers to reach residents and disperse funding. Outreach, pretty much. And then we're just sitting on pins and needles waiting for this to come through. And then we do expect more for that to happen in the spring. So then none of this is really going to be quick, but it is a significant opportunity for the department to have. All right. How did I do on time? Okay. Yes. One knockdown. I'm here for you. Does anybody have any questions?
My name is Jay Fisher. I live in Eastham. And about 6 years ago, we bought a solar system from, I'm going to say the name, Solar City. We're very unhappy with it because it's underperforming. Now, what sort of recourse do we have? I mean, we've tried to work with them in terms of correcting the system. They tell us that Eversource is the problem, that Eversource can't take on any more solar power. This is what they're telling me. And so I was just wondering if there are any avenues we can go down to see if we can get some sort of satisfactory outcome.
A better response to that is since the department works very closely with the Attorney General's office, so if you actually do a complaint with them, they do a solar bill analysis with you. And that will kind of make you feel like they're looking at that. They're not trying anything, but they'll help you work through that. And the statement about Eversource, unfortunately, that's not true. They can't control how much, and they know solar is such a popular thing. They are rebuilding their infrastructure due to that. So Great question, though. And like I said, there are resources for that, and that is the Attorney General.
You sort of anticipated my question. What are if we all go solar,
Yeah.
the infrastructure that we have for going bi-directional with power, as it were, what are the reality checks on it? How fast is Eversource upgrading stuff? I mean, we still have electricity on poles and it comes down when there's a big storm.
Yeah, I found out about that. That is one of the big things. Apparently, there's a large substation at the end of the Cape, and it just goes all the way from here to the end, and you guys are down. It's unfortunate. I don't know what Eversource's plans are for that particular type of scenario. I know that what they're doing right now is what they call them SIP projects, SIP. But they're really trying to take groups of them. I think you kind of like, well, Marielle knows a little bit more about them, and they're basing large substations, and they plan on upgrading them. Right now, each one is in areas I'm familiar because I'm from Plymouth. So Plymouth has one, the Cape has one. There's ones in Western Mass, both Eversource and National Grid have them. They're with the DPU right now. Their projects, actually, I do have a timeline. They are pretty much 3 to 5 years for.
We all get on at the same time.
Well, it's not even that. They're upgrading the infrastructure. It has nothing with you going on, you individual home, you can do that, but just knowing that they plan on, let's say, upgrading the infrastructure, that is a project that is being done. They call them the SIP projects.
If you can just do a quick clarification on the money from the state, you said the SMART was worth zero. Are there
Yes.
any kind of tax credits or rebates or anything
Yeah.
that comes from the state when you do solar?
Yeah, there's going to be somebody talking exactly about that. But yes, there is, and that's why I think like they've built a really good group here, because a lot of the things that we're going to say today, you're going to keep hearing the same thing: tax rebates, incentives, and different types of loan solar financing options.
I tried to go through the links and see if my roof was like good for solar, and I got to a link called Project Sunroof. Is that right?
Oh no,
I started going, so I don't know, like.
I'll find you.
It's, what?
Oh, it's like I can find you after this and show you the technical potential solar study one.
Okay, I just think everyone might want to know how to get to it.
That-
Because I tried and then it said, oh, your roof hasn't been done yet. So
No.
I just, okay, the wrong link. Okay, I'm glad to know I got to the wrong link.
It's okay. Yeah, no, it's actually like a story map that pops up, and you type in your address, and it gives you like a grading system, A, B, and C. So, but like I said, after this, I'm going to be sitting out there. I can pull it up. For the most part that I've seen, yeah. So it's just more of like, again, it's taking the space of your roof. It's not counting in any type of shade. We didn't type in like any shade values. That's when you sit down with a direct consultant. But it's a tool to see the potential of solar that can be sited. Yep.
Hi, we're snowbirds, and we therefore are not full-time residents. We own property here and one in Florida. Is that lifestyle, does that disqualify me for all or any of your governmental rebates or contributions or anything like that?
Yeah, the state, yeah, I'm getting help over there, state tax possibly, but I'm not yeah, the state tax incentive, but that's
In
I'm
other
getting
words,
help.
I don't have to be a full-time resident to get that discount. I've been told otherwise.
Yeah,
Not for the Fed.
yeah,
Second homes are allowed on the federal.
yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Second homes are allowed on the federal, but they're not on the state.
Yeah, I'm seeing like that. There's another speaker that was really going to talk a little bit more about that and dial that contract aspect down, your electric bill usage down. So,
Hi, my name's Paula, and I'm wondering what the rapid shutdown is for.
okay, so it's really, really good question. So when you're sitting there, if there's any type of concern with the solar system, any type of servicing that has to be done, they have to be able to shut that down. Solar system is live. Like I said, it's an electric panel. It's tied into your electric panel. If you lose power, you're losing the solar as well. So if anybody comes out to your house and has to do work on it, they would be shutting that down. Also, it's really good for, any type of, I don't like to talk about it, but it happens. But if a fire department has to come there, that's where they're going to first. You're welcome. Safety. It's there for your safety.
Hi, Mike Greer from Eastham. I was just wondering, what's the relationship between the state and community solar?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think, like, I know from us, from a developer, you know, they are getting an extra incentive and an adder to go community solar, that type of sense that are there. I'm trying to think of the relationship of us and community solar. We don't, like, we also do compliance for community solar from the state level. So each year for community solar, we do compliance. And we're looking to make sure that subscribers lists are up to date. So I think like from our level, that's really kind of what I can think of off the top of my head. I know with Solar for All, we do plan on being more hands-on with community solar and making more of that a more symbiotic state community solar relationship. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. That was wonderful. And I will mention, I pulled up the resource sheet that we have outside, and many of you may have gotten it on the way in. Although I don't see, specifically, we didn't mention the technical potential of solar study. We do have the Mass CEC site here. I don't know if that'll get you to it. So talk to Leslie afterwards, and she'll help you with that. So next up, we're really excited to have from Cape Light Compact, Mariel Marchand. She's the power supply planner, so she does a lot of work with Eversource, with the grid modernization, how to interconnect, what happens in your bills. I'll mention that Cape Light Compact is actually a nonprofit that is representing all of our towns as an entity that is, you know, they're not making profit off of you. They're not really selling. They're an aggregator. And I also volunteer for the Cape Light on their board. Really good organization. You'll get more information from them outside as well on the energy efficiency side. And they, so Mariel is the power supply planner at the Compact. She has worked on renewable energy and regulatory matters, servicing approximately 145,000 residents and businesses across the Cape and Martha's Vineyard. Prior to the Compact, she worked as a renewable program coordinator for Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, for DOER, where Leslie is right now. And Mariel worked on the rollout of the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target, the SMART program. So another good resource here. We're so excited to have all these experts here today. Mariel has a master's in urban and environmental policy and planning from Tufts. She grew up in Barnstable, and she currently lives in Sandwich. Let's welcome Mariel.
So, hi everyone. As Tom said, my name is Mariel Marchand. I'm the power supply planner at Cape Light Compact. And I am going to talk today a little bit more about the financial incentives for installing solar. So I'm going to run through just kind of level set how to read a utility bill, what supply and delivery charges are, talk about net metering credits, tax incentives, a couple alternatives to installing solar if you decide that solar isn't right for you. A program that's being offered by Cape Light Compact, the Cape and Vineyard Electrification Offering, and then some potential future programs, which Leslie really already touched on, so I won't spend too much time on those. But first, I wanted to start with just a really quick overview of who Cape Light Compact is. Cape Light Compact is a public entity. We're a joint powers entity comprised of the 21 towns on Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard and Deuce County. Cape Light Compact was founded in 1997, and it's governed by a board of officials who are appointed from each of our member entities. Cape Light Compact was the first municipal aggregator in the United States, the first joint powers entity in Massachusetts, and we're the only non-utility energy efficiency program administrator operating in Massachusetts. So as the Energy Efficiency Program Administrator, we're operating the MassSave program for customers on the Cape and the Vineyard. So you've probably all heard of the MassSave program. Cape Light Compact is operating that on the Cape, and our office is located not too far away in South Yarmouth. So the Compact really does three main things. We go out to bid and negotiate a competitive electric supply agreement to provide a power supply program. Through our energy efficiency programs, we offer rebates and incentives. Tatiana is out well, actually, she's right there, manning a table to provide more information about those rebates and incentives for energy efficiency upgrades. And we also do consumer advocacy, advocating at the state level on behalf of ratepayers on the Cape and the Vineyard. So that's participating in dockets at the Department of Public Utilities, like that electric sector modernization plan I mentioned. When that is filed with the DPU, we will be participating. So to get into my presentation, I wanted to start by just quickly going over an electric bill and kind of the two buckets of charges on an electric bill. So I had a quick question. Who here knows who their distribution company is? Show of hands. Does somebody want to yell it out? Or a couple? Eversource. Great. Okay, so we're all on the same page. If we live on the Cape or the Vineyard, Eversource is the distribution company. We receive our bill from Eversource. They own the poles and the wires. They're responsible for delivering the power to our homes and businesses. And so those delivery charges on our bill are set by Eversource at the Department of Public Utilities. They go through a regulatory process and they're set that way. On the other hand, we have supply charges or generation charges for that actual electricity that we are using. Who here knows who their energy supplier is? Can we yell out a few? Maybe we have different suppliers. Great. Okay, I heard a few different suppliers, and they were all suppliers, so that is great. Eversource also has a basic service supply product. But essentially, in Massachusetts, since the 1997 Restructuring Act, customers have the ability to choose their supplier. You can choose to be with Cape Light Compact, the municipal aggregator. If you are with Cape Light Compact, this is what you'll see on your bill. How does this work? NextEra Energy Services, they're our supplier, and then you'll see this billing for Cape Light Compact. That's how you know that you're on the compact supply. But you could be with somebody like Clean Choice, Eversource Basic Service. There are a number of suppliers that you can choose from. So that's just kind of an overview of that. Regardless of who your supplier is, you can take advantage of net metering credits if you install solar. And currently, with the SMART program being essentially at zero, net metering is really the main financial incentive for installing solar. And net metering allows you to only be charged for that net energy that you are using. Or you could be credited if you produce more electricity than you use in your house. And you can take advantage of net metering credits regardless of who your power supplier is. So essentially, when you install solar, you will have a net meter installed on your system. And so instead of normally, if we don't have solar, we just have a meter, it runs one way. When we use electricity from the grid, that meter counts up, and at the end of our billing cycle, which is a month long, you'll see how much energy you used in that month. When you have a net meter, that meter can run in, it's a bidirectional meter, it can run in both directions. So when we're using electricity from the grid, the meter's running normally, counting upwards, but if, say, it's a day like today and you're here, nobody's in your house, you're not using any electricity, but you have solar and it's beautiful and sunny out, your meter would be, you would be exporting that excess energy that you are generating and not using in your house to the grid, and your meter would be running backwards. So at the end of the month, you would see that net charge on your bill. So if you exported more than you used in that month, you would see a negative number because that's the net of your usage. And that number that you generate, that net usage, is then multiplied by a net metering credit value, and that's what you see on your bill, those net metering credits. And the value of a net metering credit is the basic service rate, which is Eversource's basic service supply, plus the distribution, transmission, and transition charges. So I think it's easier to understand if we actually look at a bill. So I have an example bill here. This is a couple years old, so charges are a little bit different now, but this is still a good example. So this is a bill for a customer for the month of April. And we can see right here this current usage, negative 321. That means that in this month, this customer produced more electricity than they used in their house, and that's why that number is negative. So if we go over to look at the actual charges on our bill, we can see that for supply, because that customer didn't draw any electricity from the grid on net over that month, those supply charges are zero, because normally you would multiply the number of kilowatt hours that you use by the supply rate to get to that supply charge, but you didn't use any kilowatt hours from the grid, those charges are zero. Below that, we see delivery listed. That $7 delivery charge is actually now a $10 delivery charge after the most recent Eversource rate case. But as you'll see, that charge is still there. That's a non-bypassable charge. All customers, regardless of whether they're using electricity or not, pay that customer charge. And so that's why that is still there, even though the usage for that month was zero. And then down at the bottom, we can see other charges or credits. And that's where those net metering credits are showing up. And so you'll see that negative 321 kilowatt hour right there being multiplied by that 0.22461, which is 22 cents, 22.461 cents. That's the net metering credit value. That's being multiplied by the number of kilowatt hours that you exported to the grid in the month. And that's being totaled there to get your bill for the month, which is actually a negative credit that will roll forward to the next month. So this is an example of a spring bill, kind of like today, where the sun is shining and we're not using much electricity because we're not running air conditioning, we don't have the lights on. So you would generally, in the shoulder seasons, you'll see those credits roll forward. And then maybe in the summer when you're using a lot of electricity for air conditioning, or in the winter when it's dark and you're running your heating system and you have lights on more, you'll use those credits. And the goal is to get that to kind of zero out for the course of a year, and I think that's what the next presentation is going to focus on. So, other incentives beyond net metering. There are tax incentives, and these are only applicable, as I think Tom said, if you own your system. So you can't take advantage of these tax incentives if you're leasing or if you're under a power purchase agreement. The state incentive is 15% of the gross system cost, up to $1,000, and as we said earlier, that's only for your primary residence. And then there's also the federal tax incentive, the Solar Investment Tax Credit, or ITC, also known as the Residential Clean Energy Credit. This is a 30% tax credit on the total cost of your system, and the ITC is currently in effect until 2023 at that 30% rate. And something that I think is pretty cool about this tax credit is if you don't have the tax liability in that first year that you purchase your system to take advantage of that full incentive, it can roll over to future years, so you can continue to take advantage of that credit until you've actually used the full credit. 2033, it's in effect. Sorry, did I say 20? Okay. All right, and now I just have a couple of alternatives to installing solar, which have already kind of been touched on, so I'll be quick, but there's community solar. Essentially, you're purchasing net metering credits from a large solar field. And these credits will appear on your bill just like that example bill that we saw. The thing to keep in mind with community solar is that you're also going to receive a bill from the developer for those credits. So you will receive your Eversource bill that will have those net metering credits, but then you're going to get a bill from the developer for the cost of those credits. Generally, you see financial savings of at most 20%. It's usually more like 10 to 15%. And this is really purely just a financial transaction. And it's very careful to read the terms and conditions of those contracts carefully to make sure you really understand what you're signing up for. There are things like escalators. It's also really important to make sure that when you're taking on that credit amount, you understand how much electricity you use in a year. Because if you do end up with extra net metering credits, there's really no way for you to use them. So you could end up with like a negative balance on your bill from Eversource that just keeps rolling over, and you're still paying the developer for those credits, but you've taken on too many credits, you're not using enough electricity to actually take advantage of them. Can we take questions at the end? Is that okay? Okay. Yeah. And then the other option, which is very different than net metering credits, is signing up with a renewable power supplier. As I said at the beginning, Cape Light Compact is a municipal aggregator. We have a power supply product. We serve about 150,000 customers on the Cape. Power suppliers match your electric usage with renewable energy certificates, which represent the renewable attributes of power that's produced by renewable resources. They match your usage with those credits. So this is very different than net metering credits, but it is another option. Again, it's very important to carefully read contract terms and conditions when you're evaluating a competitive supply offer. Going with somebody like Cape Light Compact, who's a public entity, we're not for profit, is a good option. The compact does have a standard renewable offering that's using renewable energy credits from resources that are located outside of New England, and then we have two New England-based renewable options. I'm not going to get into the details because I'm not here to talk about power supply, but if you have any questions, please feel free to talk to us in the lobby or call us, and that is really the main thing that I work on at Cape Light Compact. The compact doesn't really have many rebates and incentives for solar aside from the Cape and Vineyard electrification offering, which is a coordinated pilot program that we are in the process of rolling out to decarbonize 100 single-family homes on the Cape and Vineyard. This program is using weatherization, heat pumps, solar PV, and batteries for only a small portion of the homes to fully decarbonize those homes. And as I said, this is just a pilot for at most 100 residents, but it is something that is being rolled out currently. A little more information about the program. It's for residents who heat with electric resistance, propane, or oil, and you must meet income qualifications. So for 80 of the participants, you need to live in a deed-restricted home, deed-restricted for affordability or income. Those customers will receive 100% incentives for the heat pump, the battery, and the PV, so it's a lot of incentives there. 20 participants can qualify as moderate income, which means that you're earning 61 to 80% of SMI or AMI, and those incentives are less, but there are still incentives for the heat pumps and the PV. And finally, just some potential future programs that hopefully will be offered by the compact and statewide. The first is a compact run program. We did receive a commitment letter from the USDA regarding an application for a solar loan that would be through the Rural Energy Services Program. This would be a 10-year loan for solar and at a 2 to 3% interest rate, which compared to current interest rates, that's pretty low. Customers would need to be able to qualify for a loan in order to take advantage of this. And it's going to take at least another 6 months for us to kind of receive additional information from the USDA on steps to move forward with this. But keep an eye out for that. Hopefully it's something that we will be running. And then, as Leslie said, the EPA Solar for All funding enabled by the Inflation Reduction Act. Likely, if that does come to Massachusetts, it will go to DOER, and they will be administering a number of different programs that they've currently proposed, and we'll see what happens. So I think that's all that I had. There's contact information up here if you have any energy efficiency or power supply related questions, and we'll be out in the lobby and have lots of flyers and some goodies out there too, I think.
I just had a comment because I thought that if you had an overage in your solar and that you were banking it, that you can actually give it to a different family's house in your family. So there's a program in Massachusetts that does that. If you can share it.
Sort of. If you are net metering if the system is on your roof, you're the host, then you can use what's called a Schedule Z to assign those credits to another household. If you're receiving credits from a community solar array, it's not your system. You don't have access to that Schedule Z. Once those credits the Schedule Z is what's assigning those credits to your bill, and then they're on your bill. There's nothing further you can do with them. You can't assign them to anyone else from there. So if it's on your own home, yes, you can assign credits elsewhere, but if you're receiving them from a community solar array, that's the end of the line.
So if you lease your system versus owning your system, you don't really, if you're leasing them, then you don't own them. So would that still apply if you can pass those credits on to family members or another household?
I actually do not know the answer to that. I would think that you should be able to, but the credits are being assigned to your bill, and so that's a little bit different. What you would be paying the developer, sure, yes, you're correct. That number is set by your contract, but the credits that are coming and actually ending up on your bill, I'm not sure if you have the ability to go to the developer that owns the system and ask them to use the Schedule Z to send those credits elsewhere or not.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. Thank you for being here, especially on your day off, and for your work. May I please, the program that Keep Light has for those 100 households, what kind of process do you have for outreach to reach potential applicants? Are you working with the communities, or Habitat or anybody to, okay, so you have avenues in place to make sure you get
Yes,
the
we are
people that
working with all of
qualify?
the agencies that could help us identify deed restricted properties. So yes, we've definitely talked to the housing agencies on the Cape, Habitat. We are doing a lot of outreach around that.
I had 2 questions about the programs you mentioned. It doesn't sound like very many if you're like middle income, but are you taking like applications, or if you were like someone with the middle income, have you already identified the 20 homes, or are you in the process?
We are accepting applications, accepting interest. I think the best thing to do would be to call
Okay.
and express interest in CVEO, and you'll be most likely transferred to Stephen, who's really heading up that kind of the initial identifying if people qualify or not.
And then the other one was about the low interest loans. I just wondered, is that kind of like, is it a definite that Cape Light Compact is going to have that? Or is it more like the student loan payoff where we just don't know where it stands? You know what I mean?
It's a very good question. We received a commitment letter from USDA. So we hope that we will move beyond the commitment letter. Commitment letter sounds positive and somewhat binding, but I'm not sure.
Hi, I have a question about the federal tax rebate. So I believe I remember it said something like 30% of the cost. So say, for example, your solar system costs you $10,000. I don't know the expense. I'm just throwing this out as a nice round number. Does that mean that you get to take $3,000 off of your taxable income? Or does that mean, should you be paying federal tax, you get to take $3,000 off of your tax bill?
It's off of the tax bill. It's actually
Okay, so you would actually spend $3,000 that you wouldn't give to the government?
Yes, and it's almost like cash in your pocket as long as you have.
Right, if you pay that much federal tax. Right.
And you can also carry it over year to year.
So it's, in the carrying it over year to year, does that mean you can take off 30% until you've reached that $10,000?
No, it would.
Oh, so you could take the $3,000 credit over a number of years if your tax bill isn't that high?
Right, yeah, if you didn't have a $3,000 tax liability in the first year, you could carry the remaining.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure how it worked.
Hi, question. If any of us wanted to change our supplier to Cape Light Compact, is that something we do with Eversource or with Cape Light Compact?
The easiest way to do that is to call that 1-800-381-9192 number and ask to be enrolled in our power supply. Our supplier will submit an enrollment request on your behalf to Eversource, but you would go through our supplier.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Lisa. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Sorry.
Hi. I'm possibly putting an ADU, and I'll need some resources for insulation and outfitting the unit with the best that I can, and also possibly doing solar with it. Do you know the time span for someone to do an evaluation for the insulation issues and such?
I do not. Tatiana and Meredith in the lobby might be better able to answer that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can we get a mic? Do we have any online questions? Maybe you can check with Devin. Check with Devin on online questions.
Could you go back to the bill? Yeah. So we have a delivery charge and we have a supply charge. So those credits go against the supply or the delivery or what?
So the credits essentially go against your entire bill. So like if in the next month you actually used energy and you had supply charges that you had to pay, those credits could be used to cover those supply charges.
So the credits are based on what number? For example, some people pay 20 cents per kilowatt hour for supply. Other people pay 15 cents, depending upon who their suppliers are. How is the credit calculated?
The credit is calculated based on the net metering credit value, which is the basic service rate, so Eversource's basic service supply rate, plus distribution, transmission, and transition. So if you're on Cape Light Compact supply, our supply right now is 14.8 something cents. Eversource's basic service supply right now is 16 something. That 16-cent number is what's going into that net metering credit value calculation.
It's the Eversource number.
It's the Eversource basic service plus distribution, transmission, and transition, which are small charges in relation to basic service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just a quick follow-up, Mariel. I think you had said that this was an imaginary bill some years ago. The full number, I think, today is not 22 cents. It is something more than that. Is that correct?
Definitely more than that, because basic service right now is 16 cents, and then the distribution charges are, I don't know, about 15, 20 cents.
So it's more
together.
like 32
So it's more like
cents or something like that per kilowatt hour that you'll see today.
Yeah, and it'll change as basic service changes, which it changes every 6 months.
Thank you.
Do you know in the history of Cape Compact providing this supply, has the price ever exceeded Eversource's basic supply?
Yes, we certainly cannot guarantee savings compared to the local distribution company. Currently, our rate is below basic service, but there's nothing to say that when our rate changes in 6 months and their rate changes in 6 months that our rate wouldn't be higher. Generally, we are competitive with basic service. We're close to, since I've been here, we've been slightly below, but it's certainly possible we could be above. We can't guarantee anything.
But your energy is green energy, essentially.
We are matching our customers' usage with renewable energy credits. Yes.
Thank you. Could you just tell me where I can find information about Schedule Z? That's pretty incredible that you can donate your credits. Where would I find that? Is it like statutory?
No, it's through Eversource that you would get a Schedule Z, but it's kind of hard, unfortunately, as a consumer to submit a Schedule Z. Usually it's done by an installer. Do you already have solar?
No, but we're getting close.
Okay, so I would, do you want to?
If that's something that you're interested in, when you're working with the installer and you have, it's something that you're interested in, when you're sizing the system, it's a good question to ask somebody when you're sizing your system today, because Massachusetts does allow you to oversize in a certain percentage. Like if you're coming from New Jersey, you can't. Your utility will not allow you to. You stuck at 100%, but Massachusetts does a little bit allow that. But if you are interested in Schedule Z, you have to figure out a certain percent. You can give 5% to your neighbor. You can give 100%, but noting that it's any extra credit. So you can do that in advance. You can maybe give like 10%, but I wouldn't suggest giving like 100% right out of the bat unless you know what your solar system is producing.
Could you do that for a short period of time? Do you have to decide right away?
No,
for
so
permanent?
Eversource allows you to submit Schedule Zs 2 times a year and update them. So at this moment, that's what they're doing. So you do have the ability to work with your solar installer to submit. You just need to know the person's account number and how much of the percentage of your credits would be going to them.
And does the person have to be under Eversource?
It's they consider them called ISO zones. So most of it, Eversource to Eversource, can do it on the Cape, but you couldn't necessarily do Eversource. Where else is it?
I don't think you could go to Western Mass.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's so interesting. But where could I go onto the state website to find out information
Eversource's
about it?
site actually has it. It's also called virtual net
That's
metering.
right. Okay.
Yeah, so Eversource has information on that.
Great question. And I'll also mention Mike Sarcione is going to speak next after the break, has some information on that. He's been looking into both the ability to donate to charity, but also maybe to donate to low-income folks in town. So we've been talking a little bit to the town on that. And he has more information on how to, he's actually gone in and gotten Schedule Z, so some good info there. And I also understand that you can move money, net credits from if you have a second home, if your home on the Cape is a second home, you can move the net credits to your primary home, so long as you're in the same zone, the same Eversource Eastern Zone or whatever that's called. So anyway, let's thank our speaker.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a 20-minute break, well, about 15-minute break. So let's. Okay, hopefully everyone had a good break, found some good snacks back there. And I've been asked to remind everyone of a couple things. First of all, there is a sheet with resources. So a lot of the information that you see today, you can also follow on the resource page. And at the bottom, almost at the bottom, the Climate Action Committee, Eastham Climate Action Committee, will be posting more and more information there as well. And I believe we'll be able to post most of the slides on there. We're just waiting for permission from everybody to do that. There is also an evaluation sheet that you'll see around. So we'd love to get your feedback on how this worked, because we do hope to plan other workshops and other events for residents. And we want to make it obviously valuable to you. There is, in the packet that you got, there is a worksheet that Mike is going to talk about next in terms of sizing your system. So you may want to pull that out of your packet and get that ready. All right, so with that, what I want to do is introduce our next speaker, Mike Sarcione, who we have the privilege of having on our committee. Mike is a retired engineer from Worcester Polytechnic, and he states he's a former man-made climate change skeptic, but now he owns 2 solar panels, plus battery. 2 systems, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, not panels, 2 systems, plus a battery storage unit. One is at his primary residence here in Eastham, and the other is at his second in Austin, which he uses to go visit the grandkids, and drives his EV all the way down to Texas to visit them. He is also one of 2 Eastham reps on the Cape Cod Regional Tech High School Committee, which is a very important organization that helps enable the students to really get into the technical trades and technical future careers. And we hope to keep them here on the Cape, of course, and hopefully part of that is getting into solar and renewable energy. He chairs the curriculum subcommittee on that board. He is a member of the Climate Action Committee and our Solar Working Group, which is the group that that planned this workshop. Eastham Garden Club, and you can talk to him about his hydrangeas. All right. He also volunteers at the Autobahn, so he's kind of a full spectrum green and energy and environmentalist. So please welcome Mike Sarcione.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right. So yes, as Tom mentioned, I have two homes. Our principal residence here is in Eastham, which we're here most of the year. And then we have another, what I call the grandchildren residence in Texas, because that's where the grandkids are. So we spend some of the winter months down there. And I have solar and energy storage at both locations. So what I'm going to tell you is my experience based upon two different residences with solar plus storage. And if you ever want to know about driving back and forth to Texas and how easy it is or not to charge your electric vehicle on the way, I can certainly talk about that too. And I will this afternoon. I'm house number 1 on the tour. So I'm going to talk about how do you size your own system. If you want to get to a $0 electric bill, which we have not paid for electricity since 2018. All right, and you argue, well, of course you paid for it because you had to pay for your solar panels. Yes, but as you'll see later on, we're about almost 85% whole on what we paid for our system in 5 years. So, and that includes the cost of electricity, the credits, which you don't get today from SRECs, okay, because when we get into the program in 2018, as you'll see, we've made over $10,000 back in just the energy we've produced based upon the state incentives at that time, which now have gone to, unfortunately, 0. So that's going to extend the payback time a little bit, unfortunately. Plus, I have backup power. When the grid goes down, I can continue to use my solar because I have a generator that will control what the house requires. It disconnects us from the grid, and then the battery will power my lights, my refrigerators, my heat, my well pump, because I haven't got the town to connect me yet. Our little road is not yet completed, unfortunately. Been paying the surtax for all these years, but can't reap the benefits. All right, so I'll talk about how you decide your own system to get to that $0 a month energy bill, electric bill. I'll show you an example on our case of the Eastham House. Eastham House, what our return on investment was, and then why energy storage is more than just for backup. All right, I'm going to talk a lot about that because there's going to be some changes coming in net metering. All right, so let's first talk about how you size your house. If you look at your electric bill, which you've seen previously examples, you usually get this month's usage and all the previous 11 months as well. But you have to understand your annual usage because you need to know what your solar system that you put on your home is going to produce. If you want to make enough solar to cover all of your electric bill, which we do, actually to cover it plus some, then you need to size it appropriately. If you can't fit all the solar you need on your roof space and get decent production, then you can at least also have whatever solar you can get plus subscribe to community solar as well. So you can actually do more than one thing at the same time. So community solar could do the balance of your bill. But every home is different. And like Tom says, use Cape Light Compact. Matter of fact, we just did our second energy audit in 5 years. And we're going to have some insulation done at a pretty decent price. So, it'll make our home a little tighter, even though the home is about 20 years old now. But what do you use to heat your home? What do you use to cook with? What do you use to heat your hot water? All right, all these are going to determine, and do you have any medical equipment that needs to be powered? All this is going to determine what your annual usage is. The average is about 12 kilowatt hours per year. All right, 12,000 kilowatt hours per year, or 12 megawatt hours per year. So that's the average for a Cape Cod home. All right, so in our case, we're here 7 months of the year. We use about, on average, a megawatt hour per month. All right, while we're here. But that's, again, not every month, but that's on the average over the 7 months. And that's just two of us, a large, decent-sized home, but not exorbitant compared to some of the other things I see going up. We have 24 solar panels, and we produce 9 megawatts a year. So that 2 megawatts is actually used to both build up our credits against what we use in the winter months that we don't make enough production for, and we also donate some of that to Housing Assistance Corp. So We offset some of the electric bill by our overage, and that's what Schedule Z is actually used for. When you own your own solar, there's a Schedule Z that Eversource provides that you determine how you want to allocate those net metering credits. You can choose to hold all 100% for your own bill, or you can partition it to other Eversource accounts within the system, and that's what we do. Okay, so if you don't know, I'm going to educate you. If there's only 2 changes you make in your life to help the planet, all right? And as Tom said, I was initially a skeptic as a science and engineer person. I said, well, the Earth warms every 10,000 years. Anyway, we know that from the ice samples that we take, the core samples that we take in the ice. We can determine how the climate has changed year after year over thousands of years. But unfortunately, if you look at the rate we're changing in this time, current time, it's faster than those other previous 10,000 year periods when we didn't have the burning of fossil fuels. So I had to do the math myself and convince myself that, yeah, we are affecting it. And so what can I do about it? So what I've tried to do, again, is start to work more renewable energy into our lives. So on Cape Cod, we're unique, right? Especially the outer Cape, our part of the Cape. We drive to the transfer station. We drive to the beach. We drive to Orleans for groceries. We drive to Orleans for doctor's appointments. We drive to Orleans for the pharmacy. So everything we do is in that vehicle that emits, carbon dioxide. Unfortunately, that's the case. And 55% of the pollution on Cape Cod due to carbon dioxide is in light-duty transportation. The pickup trucks in the cars that we drive. 40,000 cars a day go between the Orleans Rotary and Wellfleet passing through Eastham on a July day. 40,000 vehicles. Multiply that times the number of tailpipes and people sitting in traffic waiting at the lights at Brackett Road and wherever. Okay, so you can see that's the issue we have on Cape Cod. Now, we can solve the problem on Cape Cod, but that's not going to make climate issues go away, all right? We have great carbon sinks between the bay and the ocean and the marshes and some of the vegetation that we have, right? So we're not the problem. But unless we do it, the state does it, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, unless the whole country does it, and ultimately the whole world, what we do here isn't going to make a hill of beans, all right? So people have to recognize that. It's that grassroots motivation that needs to proliferate elsewhere. So understand that too. It's not just us that has to make these changes. So each of us can do our own part. So that's number 1, is what you drive. Number 2 is how you heat your home. The second largest polluter we have on Cape Cod are our natural gas and oil furnaces. All right. So heat pumps are really the way to go, and that's why the state is trying to promote and move us in that direction, because heat pump, even at 0 degrees outside, is still more efficient than a 95% or 98% gas furnace. All right. During the summer, it's more like 400%, 300 to 400% efficient. All right, because all it's doing is moving heat from place A to place B. That's all the heat pump does. All right, it compresses the fluid and moves the temperature from A to B. It's less efficient in the winter, but it's still more efficient if you talk about BTUs, British thermal units, which we measure the units of energy in terms of power energy in to energy out. You get more energy in, you get more energy out for lower energy in with a heat pump, even at 0 degrees. Okay, so that's what the state's trying to do. All right, so buy a leased electric vehicle, put in a heat pump if you want to make the biggest changes, other than, of course, adding solar to give you some independence from the grid. Okay, so if you know how much you use a year, if you think about, like I said before, the average usage could be about 12,000 kilowatts or 12 megawatts, then you want probably at least a 10 kilowatt system peak on your home, all right? And that's probably about, 30-ish panels, all right? And I give you some numbers here. In this case, I said 27. But every home is different, all right? You have to recognize your canopy coverage, your home orientation, how much south-facing roof do you have, how much is that roof area. So this is a guide that just gives you, on average, how big a roof space you need, facing south, ideally, and what kind of production you can do for that many panels. All right, so you can do that math on your own if you have your electric bill. All right, but now what you have to consider is if you don't have a heat pump yet, or you're not charging an electric vehicle yet, you want to think about that growth, all right? And the other thing I'm trying to promote is environmental justice. There's a decent population, as you all well know, on the Cape that are struggling in terms of financial income. So the utilities have talked about it, and it wasn't discussed earlier today yet, because if you look at what's happened in California, Connecticut, Arizona, there's lots of complaints about people like us who have solar not paying their fair share, and that the people that can't afford solar are paying more because we're not paying for that transmission fee, we're not paying for that connection fee, because what we're building in solar is covering those expenses. So everyone else has got to pay for them. So states like Connecticut, California, and others have changed their net metering programs such that the only credit you're going to get on your bill is against generation. So you're not getting it against the transmission fee or against some of the other charges that are on your typical bill, because again, they're claiming that it's unfair. So just be aware that this is always a moving target, all right? So the incentives today are likely to change tomorrow. So the sooner you can get in, like I did in 2018, I'm glad I did, because I got those SRECs and I made some decent money on my payback. But today, maybe next year when the state rolls out, if we can get that Inflation Reduction Act money to somehow help the state roll it out and make it cheaper for folks to put solar. You think about all the homes on Cape Cod, and you think any of them are unoccupied most of the year? All that roof space that people could be contributing to the grid and also helping offset environmental justice as well. To me, it's sad, especially when they're multi-million-dollar homes. So if you see a multi-million-dollar home that has no solar, shame them, because they can afford it. All right. So, any questions on this? Well, I guess I'm going to hold questions to the end. Okay, so let me give you an example of return on investment, because I want to make sure we get questions. In my case, my system cost in 2018 $60,000. That was before all incentives. Now, that included 24 panels. That included a 100-amp cable that was over 100 feet long to go from one end of my house to the other end of the house, to get from my main panel to my garage where I wanted to charge my electric vehicle. All right. That also included a 16 kilowatt-hour battery. 8 kilowatts peak, and that's important. You have peak ratings on a battery, and you have energy ratings, which is the amount of power you can give over a certain time, all right? So I have a 16 kilowatt-hour battery. That was $24,000, all right? And then I also had, like I said, that 100-foot rating amp. So that $60,000 included everything. I only paid $40,000 out of that $60,000, and I've gotten back to date over $35,000, all right, since 2018. And you can see the breakout. Saved over $11,000, almost $12,000 in electric bills. If you look at that average of usage per year, I've got SREX income of over $10,000. I charge my EV for free because I make enough power to overcome my EV charging. So I drive for free. The only time I pay for transportation is when I go off Cape, all right, when I have to go to Texas, so to speak, okay? And now, I have a battery. So that's, I looked at the price of a whole house generator versus a battery, and so I paid for the battery. I didn't want that thing in my yard, lighting up every week, having to change the oil in the filter every year, and using fossil fuels to give me backup. And don't get me wrong, I still cook with gas. I still have a gas hot water heater, all right? But I don't do a gas furnace anymore. I have a heat pump for the whole house, plus the electric vehicle, so I'm trying to minimize what I do. To me, gas is fine in an emergency, don't get me wrong. But if you don't need gas in an emergency, then why use it? So when the grid goes out, I still get power because I've got that backup. Now, energy storage is really more important than you think. What you didn't hear this morning as well from DOER or Cape Light Compact is that if you look at, again, many other states have gone to a time of day rate structure for electricity. We don't have that yet. We pay the same rate no matter what time of day we use the electricity, okay? But in California and Connecticut and other states, you pay depending upon how the grid is loaded. So if you look at our grid and where its peak power requirements occur between the hours of 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 7 o'clock at night. When people start getting home from work, start preparing and cooking dinner, all right, start watching TV, turning on the appliances and so forth, that's when we use most of our power. And that's when, in other states, it's more expensive, okay? If you had solar and a battery, in my case, my battery, I can program it so that at 3 o'clock, the battery will kick in and provide my power that I've built up during the day because of my solar panels. And so I'm not using the energy come from the grid. I'm using the energy come from my battery that I've built up previously in the day, all right? And I've sized my battery, my 16 kilowatt hours. If we don't have sun for a couple of days, I can get by with keeping the house in a 20-degree winter day at 60, 65 degrees for 2 days without a problem, okay? If the sun is out, I can go for a long time because I make enough power, even in the winter, to recharge most of that battery and still charge what's necessary in the house. So that's why the battery is important, okay? And it gives you some energy independence. If the grid goes down, what my biggest nightmare is, and it's going to happen, just a matter of time, like everything else. I don't care whether you talk about mass shootings or mass environmental events. It's going to happen everywhere at some point. It's just going. When it's our turn, it's our turn. A major winter storm, roads are impassable. Everybody's got electric homes, 5 minutes, okay? Everybody's got electric homes. If I can't go rescue all these people, you got to be able to self-survive in your house, all right? And if you don't have electricity, you got to think about how you're going to do that, all right? So just a FYI. All right, I talked about that. Questions? Happy to entertain questions, comments, criticisms. I take tomatoes. I have
a quick question to start. I think the average price of a solar installation in Massachusetts is around $25,000 to $30,000. I know we paid about $30 minus the incentives.
Well,
so I'm guessing that your 60 included the battery in that number.
yes, the battery plus the wire, the cabling, and
Yeah. Do you know about how much the battery costs?
yeah, I had that. 24 grand.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
Right there.
great.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh, by the way, right now the quotes that I'm seeing from some of my friends, one up front here, are about $4 per watt, per kilowatt. Sorry, $4 per watt in terms of price. If you look at what they're giving you, and that's the peak power.
Do I have mics?
All right, whose mic is ready? The mic's not on. But I'll repeat the question. You have a question about the battery?
Because I'm interested in that area, and I've had a lot of conversations, and I've been told a number of times batteries aren't safe.
You're misinformed. You're misinformed. First of all, you're talking about, you got to understand the engineered chemistry of the battery, okay? The standard battery that goes into this, all right, versus the electric vehicle that's out there, at least most of them today, is just straight lithium ion, okay? Most of the home energy batteries now are lithium iron phosphate, all right? They're the safest battery chemistry that you can get. I would not put something that's going to catch fire, which is currently now sitting in my basement below my bathroom, okay, where my family sleeps, okay? All right, so no, lithium iron phosphate is the safest battery chemistry. It's what's been used for years, and it's what most home batteries now use. And even some electric vehicles now are going to lithium iron phosphate. All right, so you're misinformed, unfortunately.
I just put in a whole house solar system, and I wanted a battery. And the installer, who was very credible, said to hold off. He said the prices are bouncing all over the place. He said the building codes are changing daily, and so he said wait 6 months, a year, whatever. And I was very interested. I was willing. He said, well, if money's no object, I'll put a battery in. But he said for now, today, it's too they're in too much flux.
Okay, so I would argue that you shouldn't buy an electric vehicle today. Then you shouldn't buy the next new phone when it comes out. All this technology is going to change every year, and the code is going to change every year. Okay, and hopefully it changes for the best. I've got 2 batteries, both by the same company, both inside my house. I got one in my attic space in Texas, all right, which is an insulated attic, where my furnace is, and I've got one in my basement here in Eastham. And, you know, I've got kill switches on the outside of my house that disconnect both the battery and the solar because that's required by code. By the way, when I first put my battery in, that wasn't code. I didn't have to provide a kill switch for the battery. And I said, but, you know, it's the right thing to do. I want a kill switch because I want to make sure the fire people are protected when they come to service my house if it ever catches fire, and I don't want to be putting that energy out on the line when they're not expecting it, okay? So that, like I said, that was a code change after I put my system in. So that's always going to happen. It shouldn't deter you, all right? It really shouldn't deter you. Like I said, if you want to put off investing in a battery, that's your decision, but I think I think you should do it. Do you want backup power in your home when the grid goes down? Do you think the grid? Now I have to admit, since I put my battery in, the reason I put my solar and battery in, I have to be honest. The reason I put my solar and battery in the first place is because I have a nice big vegetable garden. I put up a lot of frozen stuff, and I was just sick and tired of losing my frozen stuff, all that work I had done. So I did two things. I put in solar, I put in a battery. I got a pressure canner, so now I do more stuff in glass jars than I put in the freezer. So. But anyways, but backup power. You know, you're energy independent. I want to tell you something else. My battery here in Eastham, I keep entirely in backup mode. The reason I do that is because I want it 100% charged if an event occurs that I can't predict, okay? The one in Austin, Texas, I use in self-consumption mode. So I'm about 90% independent of Austin Energy because my battery is taking over when the sun goes down. So I'm running off my solar during the day, and I'm running off my battery through the night. And I'm hardly ever using what's available on the grid. So that's energy independence, and I can do that. I don't do that here because, first of all, the rates in Massachusetts are much higher, and I get more on energy credits because if I use my battery the way I use it in Texas, I make less energy credits because I have the two-way efficiency of the battery. Remember, I'm taking my solar power, I'm using it to charge the battery, and then I'm taking that battery power and putting it back on the grid. So I'm losing that two-way efficiency in what I get back for net metering credits versus putting the solar on the grid directly. All right, so these are some of the some of the subtleties you have to learn and understand based upon having systems. Yes. Another. One more question. And then, yeah, if you come to my house for the tour, we can talk all day about this. Home one.
So I currently use oil to heat my home.
Yep.
And I know there's incentives to like go to mini splits, but I know somebody who did that and doesn't have solar and their electric bill is through the roof, right?
Yep.
For heating. So do you have a way to kind of think about how you would plan ahead
Yep.
if you would like to convert to
Absolutely.
electric heat?
Absolutely. You can plan on, for a typical home on Cape Cod, for winter heating, you can plan on 4,000 kilowatt hours additional electricity per year, okay? So four megawatts of electricity. But it's still, if you look at how much you're paying for oil versus how much you're paying for that electricity and the efficiency you're getting from those mini splits versus your oil burner, you're still ahead, okay? So, but you have to understand, you're taking one form of energy that you're paying for and you're substituting it with something else. There's no freebies here, okay?
Let's thank our speaker.
Okay.
And I'll also point out that on that worksheet that Mike put together that's in your packet, he gives you some of those tips in terms of how much you should think about adding for an EV, how much you should think about adding for a heat pump. And also we have a very detailed white paper that he put together that we're putting up on the Eastham Climate Committee website. We've requested that. I haven't checked today to see if it's there yet, but it's like a really great dive into all things energy efficiency and solar especially. So that will be on the website. All right, next. All right. So I want to introduce you to Megan Amsler, and I was kicking myself when I realized earlier this year that I didn't realize much about the Self-Reliance Corporation, I guess it is, but it's also a co-op, a fascinating organization down in Falmouth. It was founded in 1980. And its mission is to promote environmentally sound technologies and sustainable practices. Megan has been involved with the renewable energy industry since 1996, so a great expert, a great resource for a lot of information on this. She's helped plan the first photovoltaic solar rebate program in the region, and helped win a grant for that, a very large grant from the Massachusetts Renewable Trust back a bunch of years ago in 2002, so a real pioneer in that area. In 2003, she established Barnstable County as a million solar roof partner with the US DOE, Department of Energy. She delivers technical workforce training courses, STEM-based programs, college-level courses, subject matter expert for renewable energy corporations and workforce training. She has a BA in sociology from Wheaton College and did her MA work at Lesley College. She's a native Wellfletian and lives on a small farm in Hatchville. So welcome, Megan.
Nice to see you all here today. I also wanted to just make a little plug for the last question that came up about making that comparison for oil versus heat pumps. There's a fabulous calculator on the Cape Light Compact's website that I urge everybody to go on. And yeah, you can mess around there and put in, if you dig up your old bills and all that kind of stuff, it's a really good tool to help make an informed decision. I'm going to talk to you. I was super excited to follow Mike because I have some ideas and some suggestions to think about this energy storage and those kinds of things. But I'm just going to walk you through some of the things that I like to help people think about when it comes to solar. That's just a little bit about self-reliance. We are a women-led nonprofit organization. If you have questions about your proposals that you get in your process of decarbonization slash electrification, I am here to help you kind of navigate that stuff. So I'm here because I firmly believe in decarbonization, and we need to get our asses moving on this stuff fast. Pardon my salty language, but we got to stop talking about it and doing something about it. I don't know if any of you have looked at the Brattle Group's information, but this is really like, how are we going to meet these goals that the state has set for us? We've got offshore wind, we've got a little bit of hydro. That orange bar is solar. We've got a lot of work to do. So I'm really excited that there's so many people here today and that there's great interest, but we definitely have our work cut out for us. So again, our organization and all the organizations that are here help you try and make that step forward and make it less scary. We've got a goal, electrify 1 million homes by 2050 in this state. That's a big, lofty goal. How can we each get there? I've heard some different, bless you, some different things, and there's lots of pieces to this puzzle. One thing that Mike talked about was energy storage, which I think is super important, and I will say that my personal opinion about this is that we start looking at electric vehicles and bidirectional charging as our mobile battery, because that is available and it's super exciting. But solar panels, obviously, thinking about heat pumps, we've heard a lot about that, heat pump dryers, induction stovetops, all of that kind of stuff. Heat pump water heaters. I've talked to a number of people today about that, which is really great. And those are the tools, right? We now have the technology, and in the next 12 months, we will have more incentives out there available through the federal funding and through state funding that will make this stuff even more affordable, which is really exciting. I think you saw a little bit about this already. Mike had the data put out there, but does anything on this shock you? That's maybe light green? Right? Remember that we are consumers and we have been taught really well to consume stuff. And there's greenhouse gas emissions associated with that on the front end and on the back end. So the more we can do to reduce that, the better. I don't think we should buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. So I'm going to also talk to you a little bit about the different types of installations that you can do. A lot of people get really vexed by the fact that they're like, well, I don't want to cut down trees. And I'm probably the first person to tell you, I believe in ecosystem services of trees. And we need to keep our trees. So in some cases, people have a hard time because they're like, well, wait a second, I don't want to cut the trees down just to put up solar, and I'm with you on that. I think there are other ways to make this happen. And when we did our first rebate program with the then Renewable Energy Trust Fund, this photo up on the left-hand side is a house over on Martha's Vineyard, a historical home. We started doing ground-mounted installations. So this is another home over on the vineyard. They actually had roof space, but they decided that they wanted to do a ground mount. So nobody's really talked about this today, and so I wanted to kind of get you guys thinking about that. These are just frequently asked questions that I hear all the time. We've covered a lot of this stuff, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But I do want to have you guys think about what the future looks like. And to Mike's point about thinking about energy storage, how much do you really need? Do you need the whole house to be on? Do you need, just power during the day? These are obviously very individualistic questions that you need to think about. But I urge people to think about this stuff, and if you sit down with me, we talk about this kind of stuff together. And I was super excited about disassembling some of the misconceptions that are out there, because a lot of people hear things that are kind of true, but they're not really sure. Who do I believe? All of that stuff. And I think, again, it's really important for us to get down and understand what the reality is. Just a little bit about advantages and disadvantages. I think we all kind of know this stuff, super straightforward, but also remembering that some people do have aesthetic issues. And down here on the Cape, we have the historic Old Kings Highway District, depending on where you're at. There are workarounds in lots of these instances, but just remembering, I think, for me, the biggest one with a lot of people is this, this is serious sticker shock. And that's true, right? Because we've been conditioned really well. We pay as we go. How many of you ever go back and look and see, how much have I paid for electricity over the last 10 years? I don't know too many people who do that, right? Because they're like, the Eversource bill, just leave that alone. Just an exploded diagram if anybody's interested, how the solar panels work. Obviously, the laws of physics say that those electrons are going to go to the load, right? That's the closest load is where they're going to supply. Whatever excess you have, we've heard about net metering. Those excess electrons that are not being utilized on site flow out into the utility grid and go to our neighbor's house, because that's probably the next place where there is a load. This is a cool little tool that we have. If you're interested in borrowing these things, we have them at Self-Reliance. They're called Solar Pathfinders. It's a really, even if you want to plant a garden and you're not sure where to go in your yard, this is a cool tool. It's got a compass on it. The numbers across the bottom are the hours of the day, and then those dotted lines across the dome there are representative of the months of the year. And so this is it's a shading tool. You can see, I don't know where, do you know where is this the? Oh, there's a button somewhere I don't know how to get the laser on here. Oops, shoot. That was not the right one. Okay, there's a guy standing on the right-hand side there. That's not a tree. But what we want to see here is a good, clear solar window between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So you think this is a good site? Yeah, this is what you want to see. I'm one of those people that I drive around, and when it snows, I look for spots on the roof to see where people have energy leaking, because you can't unsee that stuff. And then I also look around and I see, like, wow, who installed that solar system? Because that's criminal. It's under a tree on the north-facing roof, right? Things like that are really bad. And most people just don't know. So yeah, if you want to borrow those things, call Self-Reliance and we'll help you. So roof-mounted, right? This is what we see primarily. We need to have good airflow underneath these installations. And then there's the ground-mounted installations. Again, I think that images really help people think outside the box. And I have a neighbor, two photos up on the top. This is taken late in the afternoon in the wintertime. As you can see, there's snow on the ground. I promise you it is not a poorly sited installation. It just was the time that I happened to get out there with the camera. But that's an awning mount on her barn. Her horses hang out underneath that. This is an awning mount on the side of a house. And then you could have something in your yard. And it's quite easy to, in fact, I sat with somebody, we were looking at Google Earth of his house. It's like, all right, what do you got? Where can you be in your yard that maybe you don't have to cut down any trees? And remember, trees grow, right? And your towers don't, and your roof is not gonna grow higher. Here's just some more. You could do something over an awning mount over a porch. You can build a little canopy thing. There's another awning mount on the side of the house that's covering up some other things. A lot of people have porches on the side of their house that's facing south, and they say nobody ever sits out there in the summertime because it's so blazing hot. PV awning is the answer for you. We talked a little bit about solar cars, or not solar cars. My car runs on sunshine, not the one I drove here today, but like Mike, I plug in my electric car and my solar system, on a beautiful day like this, my car's sipping sunshine. So that's the way I like it. Think about if you need some little carport in your yard, because that's a good choice. Here's another, if you want a little shed. These are not fabulous installations, and I hope we don't ever see these kinds of things. This is actually a LEED building in Santa Monica, California, that I had to stop and take a picture of because I was so horrified. There's about 5 kilowatts of PV, which back then was about $40,000, in the shade. Don't do this. I don't know if people want to get into the weeds on microinverters, but if you do happen to have some shading issues, go with the microinverter system, because that will pull those modules off of production and not be the kink in the electron hose that makes the whole system lack its production. This is just a quick snapshot, but you've got lots of things. We have a lot of things coming out in the future, and Climate Bank and Solar for All and all kinds of other things that are coming, and loan programs that will make things more effective. And so that I'm super excited about. But to get to the root of what I was asked to come here to talk about with you today, these are the things that I want to stress. Please use locally based installers. I think we know enough horror stories about the carpetbagging that can happen in this industry. And check your references. You want to look for NABCEP certification, which stands for the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. Self-Reliance has done NABCEP training in the early years. We ran lots of workshops to train the people that are now working as the local installers. The third point is something that may matter to you, it may not, and I am merely an advocate for thinking about this stuff. Does traceability matter to you? Do you care where your modules are coming from? Do you care about the environmental implications of where that stuff is manufactured? Again, it may matter to you, it may not. That's something that I help you as you're walking through your proposals. You look at who's manufacturing this stuff. We do a little digging. Check references. That's always the, hey, so-and-so solar installation company, who do you have for references? Which is good. I urge everybody to get that. Talk to your friends and neighbors, because they're the ones who can tell you also if they've had good experiences or not. Bless you. This last one kind of goes with the carpetbaggy stuff. If what they're offering sounds too good to be true, trust your gut on this, please. There were some $2.35 for a new roof, a battery, and a PV system. I'm like, do not sign that. People walking door to door in your neighborhood, that's good, but I have seen over and over people getting, they'll send me parts of a contract. I'm like, where's the rest of this? Do not sign this. Please do not sign this. And there are enough people around in our community that you can add. You don't have to call me. You can call your friends and neighbors and ask, hey, I got something. I'm kind of nervous. What should I do? And people are, they're not here to kind of push you over the edge. I'm a firm believer, and I think everything that we've heard today is about making informed decisions about this stuff. And think about ownership versus leasing. Because again, I get that there are times when people don't know how long they're going to be in their homes for. They don't want to raid the piggy bank. They can't raid the piggy bank, and a lease sounds really good. Again, have somebody look over that lease for you. Go over the numbers. See what the escalators are. See if there are things that are missing. Because, again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Think about your electrical appliance loads as you're moving forward. You know, some folks feel like, oh, I've already had a contractor give me a quote. I'm like, yeah, but if you're talking about adding heat pumps and an electric vehicle and you didn't talk to them about that, like, let's be smart about this and go back to them and ask for another proposal. And there are other companies out there who are like, we're in the go big or go home kind of category. We're going to size the biggest system we can for you. And I will also, just going back to my whole thinking outside the box of the roof, a lot of companies will not offer you the opportunity to do ground mounted or some other creative siting, you know, building a shed or something like that. You need to ask about that. And it's going to cost more per watt, but again, think about how you value the ecosystem services of the trees and how do you put a price on that. So, and remember, the cost of doing nothing is way greater than a simple math problem, right? And I get it. There are a lot of things in this process that make it kind of scary. But again, you have lots of resources and people to lean on in this community to help you make an informed decision. Things that are coming up in terms of electrifying, there's going to be funding for the panel upgrade. So if you know, like, oh, I've got knob and tube wiring in my house, there's support for you out there with up to $4,000 of incentives and a $600 federal tax credit for that. All of this stuff will be coming out. I didn't put it in here, but rewiringamerica.com is a fabulous resource for this stuff. And I will say, like, all of the local solar installers, when they look at your panel and they'll tell you, you know, what the issues are. And if you have a good electrician, they are also, you know, really good at telling you, like, yeah, you're kind of maxed out here. But this is key, right? You've got to have some space, some real estate in that electrical panel if you're going to upgrade to all of the heat pump technologies and other things that are drawing electricity. This was talked about already, but super exciting that the Cape Light Compact has this program, and really excited about that. Net metering we talked about. This is another thing. If you're thinking about needing some resilience, some energy resilience in your dwelling, this is an inverter that does not have a battery in it. You have a plug that's dedicated, right? A dedicated circuit so that when the power goes out and the sun is out, you have some power. When the sun goes down, so does the power. But this is, you know, this is just a sort of an intermediary step between that. So bidirectional charger and solar with your vehicle. There are a number of vehicles out on the market right now, the Ford Lightning being one of them. Obviously, this is not a photo from around here, but it is a cool thing. And I think as we start thinking community-wide, building resilience into electric vehicles to the home, electric vehicles to the grid, these are all kinds of things that I am a huge advocate for. Community shared solar, just going to give a little plug here to Self-Reliance, is one of the entities. There are a number of entities out there that offer community shared solar. Some people, they want to pull their hair out when they want to try and figure this out, but think of it as buying gift cards, right? You pay $100 for a gift card, you pay $85 for that gift card. The credits get applied to your Eversource bill, as we have seen, but if you're interested in this, we have a local project for that.
Did you know that the U.S. will need more than 1 million new electricians by 2030? And that for every new electrician we train in the next decade, 2 electricians are expected to retire or change careers.
Less than 2% of all electricians are women. We have the solutions to fix the climate crisis, but we just don't have the electricians to do it.
I don't want a job that's boring. don't want to sit behind a desk. I don't want to be tens of thousands of dollars in debt when I'm 25. It's time you reconsider how you talk to kids about the trades. Everyone needs to hear us.
So if we need to do this decarbonization work, we got to talk to our kids about this stuff. So that's it. And my last slide is just my contact information. Any questions?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not the only one. I don't really understand the bi-directional
Meter?
meter.
Or a charger?
With the electrical vehicles.
Yeah. So you know there's a charger, right, that you plug into the car. That sucks power out of the grid and into the battery in the vehicle. Bidirectional charger, right, because the car is just a big battery. So it would allow those electrons to be pulled back into the house or onto the grid. So that charger has an inverter in it that allows those electrons to go both ways, similar to the net meter, right?
It's using your car as a battery.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Is there like a roadmap to how to approach this as a project? Because it seems like there could be a lot of pitfalls and issues, and I work in the engineering field, so
Yeah.
this is not Greek to me.
Right.
But the whole...
It's still kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah, so is there like kind of a roadmap to do this, go here, like an overall guide?
So
Use the microphone.
I will say that no. Because as we have heard a lot today, everybody's situation is a little bit different. And so priority-wise, I urge people to kind of think about, okay, if you have unlimited resources, then, you can kind of pick and choose how you want to move forward. If you're, thinking in a more fiscally constrained way, prioritizing, that's a personal thing. PV, the installation of solar, I think is so great. It's, as we have heard, right, you put up solar panels, you no longer pay an electric bill if you have that installation that is, completing all of your energy needs. And then you can kind of pick away at some of those other things. That's up to you. If right now you really can only do a heat pump water heater, again, it's a very personal thing. I spend a lot of time talking to people and drilling down into what matters to you and how do we figure out what this process is. And then we look at okay, right, if you wanted to go right now and do, the heat pumps, here are the incentives. And then we can kind of look through the opaque window and see what's coming down in 2024. And you have to make that cost-benefit choice. But it really is, it's a personal thing.
Megan, can I
Yeah.
put in a plug here if I can turn? There we go. I think on your resource sheet, there's a couple things there that can help you through that. Self-reliance can also help you through that. There's a state residential guide to solar. Leslie can help you a little bit on what that's about. I think it's a really good guide. The Mass Clean Energy Center has a more kind of visual guide,
Yeah.
steps you through a whole bunch of good stuff. And then the paper, the white paper that I was referring to that Mike has written for us, will be posted on the Eastham Climate Action Committee website. That also has a lot of good kind of step-by-step on how to proceed through this. And you can also reach out to us at the Climate Action Committee. We do help people. We go to the senior center once a month, the last Monday of each month, kind of a energy cafe kind of discussion, or you can email us as well.
And I think, having more discussions with folks about these things we want to allay your anxiety, frankly. Make it less scary. Yeah, and again, I will say, go onto the Cape Light Compact's website because the calculators that are on there are fabulous tools. Because you can go down a whole crazy rabbit hole, but it's nice to have a calculator right there that, helps you walk through that price point stuff. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, hi. Does efficiency go down if the ground storage is further away from the home?
Oh, okay, so you're talking about a ground-mounted PV system?
I'm sorry, yeah, ground-mounted, yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on how long that run is, but it's not really an issue. It's more the cost per watt goes up for a ground-mounted system. But again, that's a personal choice of if you want to be able to actually have solar on your site and you don't want to cut down the trees, but you have an area, maybe it's in your driveway or whatever. I mean, that's part of the cost per watt, right? The installation proposal that you get will include that cable run out there. But there are people who have a roof-mounted system and their meter is far away. You still have to run that cable. So this is not it's not an either or an or thing, especially out here on the outer Cape where the meters are not right at the house. Does that help you a little bit? Okay. And I guess the other thing that I maybe skated over when you check references is that I personally urge people to get at least 4 proposals for a solar. You want 4 quotes at least to look at. Yeah.
So I think my question kind of piggybacks a number that have been asked, but who really determines, or how is it really determined here in Massachusetts, because we have solar in Connecticut and it was done differently a number of years ago, how many panels, how much energy, how much electricity are you allowed to potentially create?
I think it's like 125. Is it still 125%? Yeah, that's sort of, I think that's what's on the Eversource's, when your solar installation company makes that interconnection application, 125% of what your consumption is.
So it will, I mean, the company that you choose to contract with, they are going to be the key point in as you get your application.
They do all the permitting for
Okay,
you.
okay.
They file the interconnection application with the utility. They pull the electrical permit.
Okay.
And all of that stuff. And in some cases, they have, preferred providers if you want to do a loan or, all those kinds of different things. It's really incumbent upon you to ask those questions of, some of them don't offer that stuff up. You have to ask.
And therefore, and as we've been advised, think about what your potential, what you want to look at the future.
Yes.
What you might need.
Yes.
We know that in the past, our experience was that they looked at your electric bill and it was based on that usage, which I'm hearing.
You have a conversation with the potential installer and you say, here's where we're at. Like, let's say we're at 10,000 kilowatt hours a year, but we're going to put in some heat pumps and we have an EV that we don't have a charger for. So all of that stuff, it's part of a dialogue.
Okay.
And that way, you're informing the installer so that they know, okay, well,
Right.
you only have 3 kilowatts worth of roof space, so let's think about how else we can do this if you need 8 kilowatts. Does that help?
But it sounds like the culture has changed or the climate has changed in that you can be a little bit more creative.
Yes.
There's some creativity. Okay.
Yes. And as Mike said, right, he gives excess credits off of his system. I have done that as well. So, there is a little bit of wiggle room if you want to oversize your system. Let's say your parents live down the road. You can use the Schedule Z to wheel the credits over to them. So there's lots of different ways to meet your needs.
I think we have time for one more quick question.
I just want to let people know that I'm trying to engage with the governor's office about Schedule Z. Because at the moment, Schedule Z doesn't maintain the privacy of the recipient. Okay, in other words, the donor knows who the recipient is, name, address, and account number. And I'm trying to get that changed, so pray for me.
Hi, I'm Roberta Longley, and I'm the chair of the Eastham Climate Action Committee. We are the group that sponsored today and did all the planning for the past 2 or 3 months, I think it is. So a lot of work to produce this day. I just wanted to share with you what we are. We are a town committee, and a few years ago, the town created us to advise the select board of Eastham on ways that our town can reduce its greenhouse gases, as well as find ways to adapt to potential consequences to climate change. Another piece of the pie is our effort to reach out to the community about these issues, and today was, I think, an example of doing so. I think it was an amazing day. I think we are very happy with the results in terms of the numbers that have shown up today, and thank you very much for your interest on that. I hope you've gotten your answers, or at least know where to go for answers. As always, it's always about the people, and so my job is to thank everyone who has made this day. That would include our presenters, the Mass Department of Energy Resources, Self-Reliance Cooperative, the Cape Light Compact, the Cape Cod the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative, which has had a table out there, and the Outer Cape Climate Committee, which is all the other climate change committees on the Outer Cape, and many representatives were here today to talk to you about what else is going on. I want to thank the town of Eastham, particularly Kayla in our town administrator's office, who prepared all of these documents that you have. Really spent a lot of time and effort for us. Let's see. Now, the Friends of the Library, they deserve a great thank you. Particularly Debbie Abbott, who suffered through with us in all of this organization. Oops. And plenty of great ideas. Not only that, but the Friends produced, provided the beverages and the food, and also helped out with some of the other costs that we had associated with the day. Finally, the volunteers, and you've met a lot of them here today. I have to give the big shout out to Tom McNellis and his solar working group. He created this amazing concept for today. Whether we can duplicate it at some point, we'll see. And one of the things that we are anxious to hear is how we did. We have an evaluation form outside just as you step out. We would love it if you would take the time to fill out and let us know how we did with the day. That would be very helpful. And one final thing. We do have these solar tours this afternoon in Eastham. We still have sign-up sheets out there. If you are thinking about maybe sometime this afternoon after you've had lunch, to go out to one of the or two of these properties, it would be very helpful if we knew where you wanted to go so that we know beforehand. And if you say you're coming at 3, it would be great if you came at 3. So I want to thank you again for being with us this afternoon, and now go out and enjoy some of that solar activity out there.